one time my friend, this involves my friend Brian a lot because he's you know, my BFF. I've known him forever. He was my best man at my wedding. We were inseparable for many years. Like it was like one of those things where like if I was invited he'd come, or if he was invited I would come. We basically like were attached at the hip for many years because we just liked hanging out with each other. And his brother, who would live down in Oregon, came over to the house, his parents' house, and we were, because a lot of times Brian would call me and be like, hey, you want to come over and help me wash my car, or hey, you want to come over and help me fold this tent up, or hey, you want to help me do this, or you want to go shopping, and I was, you know, had nothing else to do, and so why not? And so like he's like, hey, come over, I'm gonna wash my car. I was like, all right. And so I show up and we start washing his car together, and his brother pulls up and he's like, don't forget to wash mine and make sure you get the tires really good, or something like that. And we were like, whatever, man. And so like, but then we started I started thinking about it, and like we both sort of had this like moment where we were like, let's wash this car and then not tell him about it. And so like we did that. So we washed his car and then never said anything because we thought it like would be kind of a funny prank to do, a reverse prank to do. And so yeah, we thought it was hilarious to, I mean, I remember laughing about it, like, this is hilarious. And so like, I don't know, apparently we had weird senses of humor back then. I kind of still do, but so we washed his car and then we never said anything. And like, I still don't really know if he like, does he know, did he ever know that we washed his car? I don't even remember if we never said anything about it. So, but it gave us this brilliant idea to, hey, let's go around to the people that we kind of know and wash their cars in the middle of the night, and then leave a little note that says you've been struck by the car wash bandits. And so we did that. So what we started doing was like we weekly would stay at my place, because my mom didn't really have a curfew for me, and she knew like I could stay out whatever, but she trusted me enough to not, you know, do anything crazy. And so as long as like I called and told her like, hey, or she knew like we're going out to do this thing, she was fine. And I grew up in this place called Bremerton, Washington. It's not like a giant city. It's I think the county has like 60,000 people or something like that, so it's not like a huge city. And so nighttime is pretty quiet around there, especially in like the suburban neighborhood areas. So we decided to hit up a couple people that we knew first, and so we packed, you know, washing stuff and like towels and whatever, and one of us would sneak up to the house and turn the hose on while the other were prepping the materials, and we would, you know, quietly fill up the buckets, clean the cars, wash it down. But the thing is, we're doing it in the dark, so we don't know how good of a job we're actually doing. So we sprayed everything down, and they would, underneath the little windshield wiper, we'd put a little piece of paper that says you've been struck by the car wash bandits. And we had like an email. I don't even remember what the email address is. It's probably not even in service anymore. But so we did that, and we did it a couple of weeks in a row to like kind of the people we knew, and we thought like, oh man, this is funny. So we got a little bit bolder, and we started doing neighborhoods that were close to us for the most part. And so there was one called Blueberry Meadows, and so we started hitting Blueberry Meadows on a weekly basis, because it was like a big, kind of more modern housing development where there's a ton of houses that are all really close together, and it's just like a lot of people lived up there. And so like we were like, awesome. Fun fact, we used to play back there all the time as kids, because it was just it was like a blueberry farm for the longest time when I was a kid, where in the summertime you could go up there and pick blueberries. It was like an abandoned house, which was really a creep factor when I was a kid. Had abandoned old cars and stuff, and the little pond, it would freeze over in the winter, and we'd go up there and it was like 2 inches deep, and so it wasn't that big of a deal. We would kind of ice skate around and stuff, but like it got cleared, and then they built Blueberry Meadows. Sorry, I had to change the thing again. So Blueberry Meadows was this great big housing complex, and so we would hit at night. So Friday nights, stay at my place, go up, usually it was around midnight, because we figured a lot of people are in bed by then. So we drove through then, we'd find like a dirty car, like the dirtiest car we could find, and we would wash it. And so I remember there was like a 4x4 that somebody obviously had gone you know, 4x4ing in, and it was like filthy dirty, covered in mud. 2 weeks in a row we washed that car because we thought it was really funny. I think that person emailed us and was like, thanks for the wash or whatever, which is the only person that ever emailed us. And so we hit a couple of houses throughout there, throughout like the first month that we did this, where a couple weeks in a row we went and did Friends, and then we started doing Blueberry Meadows, and then we were like, hey, let's do a different neighborhood, because we were kind of like, you know, there's not, you know, whatever, so let's go down the street. And so we went down the street, and we did this thing where we kind of like drove through the neighborhood first just to see, like, you know, find the right house, like, are the lights off, is there a bunch of cars in the driveway, like, what's it look like? And so we were, the way that this neighborhood was, it was like a big U, and so like it was like the main road, and then you turn in, and then it did a little U, and then went back to the main road in a different area. And so we were sitting kind of a straight shot on the corner, and I could see the main road, and then me and my friend David, he has a YouTube channel too, I'll link it down below, check him out. We sat on this bench, me and David sat on this bench, and oh man, I should get him to tell his version of this. I sat on a bench with him, and we were sitting there, and our friends Brian and George were up the street checking out like houses to see if they had hoses. And so like this one thing, sometimes we'd find a house with a really dirty car, but they didn't have a hose out front. And so we were gonna like hop a fence, go in the backyard and bring the hose over. That's too much for us. And so it was always like, if the hose was next to the garage and it was easy accessible, we would do it. And so we found a house that had a hose in like a car in the driveway that was really dirty. And so we were like, let's do this one. And so Brian and George were up there like trying to feel like, you know, it probably looked really suspicious, like these guys checking out this car, you know, but they were really looking for the hose. And so we walked up, they walked up to try to start the water, and a car comes around the corner, and like it comes around the corner, and they both, instead of like keep walking up the road, which is what they should have done, they ducked behind a car. And I was like, why did you do that? And so this car sort of drove past that house and then stopped and then started backing up really fast. And so Brian and George immediately panicked and started running towards us. And like, I remember he's like, oh no, no, no. And he literally jumped between us from the bench. I have no idea why he did that. And then him and George run into the bushes and like disappear. And so it was kind of like a tree line. And so they disappear, and by the time this happened, the car was right on us. Me and David were like, it was too late for us to go anywhere. And so this guy like, it's like, what are you doing near my house? And we're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. We're just sitting here like talking. And like this guy was with his girlfriend, and so they both get out and they're like interrogating us, like, what are you doing? And from like looking back now, like it absolutely looked really shady. But like, what do you know, we weren't really doing anything wrong. We were just trying to wash people's cars because we thought it was funny. And so like the girlfriend like looks, because Brian had dropped all of the washcloths and like everything right at our feet as he was running. And so like the girlfriend picks it up, and she's like, why do you have dish soap? And we're like, that's not ours, you know, like, please don't hurt us or call the cops. And so like this dude was like really agitated and like was really mad. And so like instead of like calling the cops or whatever it was, he like calls his brother, and he's like pretty loud, he's talking pretty loud, and he calls his brother and he's like, hey man, I'm down by the bench, like come down here and bring my knives. And we were like, what? And so like, but luckily from the forest you hear Brian yell, I forget what the guy's name was, but he's like, Chris or whatever his name is. He's like, is that you? He's like, who's that? He's like, it's Brian from school. He's like, what? And so like Brian and George come climbing out of the bushes and like come over, and they start talking to this guy. They knew him from school, luckily. And so apparently this guy was like a black belt in knife fighting, which is crazy, terrifying to me. So like we came clean, like, yeah, no, we were totally with them. And they're like, yeah, we figured you were, but you know, you seemed pretty, you didn't want to talk about it. And so like he thought we were breaking into his car, which that's probably what it looked like. They ducked behind a car when a car came around the corner. So we told him, like, no, we're out washing cars. And he was like, you're washing cars? And we're like, yeah, we thought it'd be funny if we just, like, washed a car in the middle of the night and somebody came and woke up and their car was clean. He's like, that's really weird, you guys. And we're like, yeah, probably. But we thought it was funny, you know? And so it was just like, it was insanity. And so that made us all kind of really nervous about, like, we started rethinking, like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this to people that we don't know, because we don't want to be, like, having the cops called on us. Like, it's like, it'd be a huge, like, you guys are washing cars? Like, what cop is going to believe that? Like, you're breaking into a car, you're not washing it. Like, come on. And so me, David, and George did not want to do cars, and we were like, let's just leave. We don't want to do this anymore. And it was like the first house of the night too that all this transpired. And so Brian was like, no, we need to keep doing this. And so we went to the next neighborhood and we were walking around, and it was just like, this doesn't feel right anymore. So we're like, okay, let's just go. So we never did it again after that. We sort of retired us because we realized, like, maybe what we're doing is funny to us and okay to us, but, like, maybe people who, like, are strangers that don't know why somebody would be washing their cars, it probably looks like we're doing something else to their car. And so, I mean, we never had any harm in mind. We literally just washed people's cars, and we used just, like, the regular soap and, you know, whatever. And so, like, we're like, you know, probably not the best idea anymore. We're still young. Even though Brian was like, maybe it was Brian or somebody said it'd be really funny to get arrested for something that wasn't illegal like that. Like, hey, we were just washing cars, man, you know? Yeah, it was definitely, like, really funny experience, really awesome time with friends. But man, that last night was terrifying, to be like, this knife fighter was gonna stab us because we were trying to watch his car in the middle of the night. So, yeah, it was funny. It was really good times with friends, but, you know, there's a lot more pranks that I could get into, but I do have one more story if you're still with me. I got humiliated in a prank war with one of the girls from my small group when I was like 26 or 27. Her name was Amelia, and she is the queen of pranks apparently, and I did not know that at the time. And so we had a lot of the group would talk to each other on Facebook back in the day, because that was, like, you know, Facebook was still kind of new to people. And so, you know, there was a lot of joking and all sorts of stuff. And there was some offhanded comment that she made on someone's post. And I think I commented, but I wasn't like, she's not that scary or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it started, but from there, she made here, I'll put it up. She made this poster of me, and, like, we went out to my friend Anna. Her parents owned a cabin in the San Juan Islands up in Washington, and so, like, we would often go out there just for, like, the weekend and hang out and stuff. And so we were all going out there, and when we get there, Amelia put this poster all over the house as, like, a joke, like, you know, obviously making fun of me, but, like, it's kind of like an office joke too, because, like, in the TV show, if you're unfamiliar, Pam draws one of the other people in the office because there was, like, a flasher in the area, and so she drew the flasher like it was Dwight with a mustache and without his glasses on. And so, like, she thought it would be really funny to do that to me, just make it look like, you know, like this man is a pervert, you know, stuff like that. And so, and, like, the phone number that's on there it was, like, not my phone number. It was, like, a couple digits off or something like that. Not that it really mattered. Everybody there had my phone number, but it was really funny. But so, like, I was like, oh man, she got me good. And so then I was like, I have to retaliate. I have to prank her back. And so I worked with her roommate because I trusted her at the time. Her name was Carly, and I worked with her, like, hey, is there any way you can get me into the house when Amelia's, like, at work, and I can come prank her room, or I can do something to the house or whatever. You know, obviously you won't get pranked. And she's like, yeah, let me try to work it out. And so she basically was like, hey, I'll text you when Amelia is away, and then, like, so come over and hang out for, you know, at least stay close by. I'll text you when she leaves. You can come over, you can do your prank, and then you can leave for, you know, whatever. And so I was like, great. And so like I bought some stuff to prank her. Now my pranks weren't gonna be the best. I bought a bunch of like Miley Cyrus and Jonas Brothers posters, and I was gonna put them all over her room. And then I was gonna cup her, leading up into her room. So like putting water in cups and just like littering the whole floor so you can't really walk through. So I was like, that's my plan, that's what I'm gonna do. And so when I got to the house after being told like, hey, Amelia's at work, come on over, I'll let you in. I get there and I knock, nobody is there. And I was like, what the heck? And so I, you know, was texting Carly like, hey, what's going on? I'm outside. I probably waited for like 10 or 15 minutes, and I was like, nobody's responding to me, like, what the heck? And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna wait around forever. I'm just gonna go home, and maybe she'll call me later. Because Amelia worked for a few hours, so it's not like I could leave and then come back or whatever if I had to. But so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go home. And so I went home, and when I walked in, my roommate was home, and I was like, oh, hey. And he was like, hey, how'd the prank go? And I was like, never answered the door. And so I was like, okay. And so like I then go and I walk around so my house, it was like kind of long and skinny. So like you walk through the living room, then you have to go around this corner, and then there's like a hallway to my bedroom. And so like I go around the hallway, and what do I see? Edward Cullen from Twilight. Now I'm gonna show you pictures while I'm talking about this. I walk into my bedroom, and everywhere on the walls, everywhere, there was posters of Twilight things on the walls of my room. Now, a couple of things. A, I had not cleaned my room in a while. It was pretty bad. There was clothes. There was probably dishes on the desk still because, you know, I was a bachelor and didn't care about that stuff back then. And, like, my bed was all messed up. Like, it was just, like, an embarrassing room to be having people come over there. And so first of all, that was probably the one thing that I was most embarrassed by. It wasn't the fact that she put Twilight stuff all over my room, like whatever. It was that she saw my room when it was a disaster like that. And so like, I was like, oh my gosh, I just got pranked. Like, not only did I get pranked, but it was like a good prank because I was told to be at her house, and while I was at her house with nobody answering the door, she was at my house pranking me. And so I was like, dang it. And Carly obviously drove her over there, and my roommate let them in. And so like they obviously upper handed me the entire time. Like, man, it was rough. And so I was like, are you kidding me? And so like I remember like I think I texted or called. I think I called and was like, oh my gosh, you got me. Like, and she was like laughing and stuff, and she's like, did you see the one behind the door? And I was like, what? So I remember like slowly turning around, and there was this really creepy picture of Edward like behind my door and stuff. And so it was funny, but it was like not, I definitely felt like an idiot, and it was not a good, my prank was not good. Obviously, so at this point she pranked me twice, and I had not pranked her yet because I couldn't get into prank her house. And so anyways, and so like Carly felt bad about it later, and she's like, you know, I will help you. I legitimately will actually. No, it was Ariel. That's right. Ariel was the one that was supposed to let me in, not Carly. It was Carly the second time. Carly drove her over there. Ariel was the one I was like, hey, can you let me know? And Amelia, and she's like, yeah, absolutely. But they're like sisters, basically. She's like, I'm not going to let you prank Amelia. And so I remember having a lot of conversations later with Carly. I was like, please, can you just let me help me retaliate, just let me in the house or something. And so I finally broke her down, and she was like, okay, I'll let you in the house, but she's like, I'll tell you how to get in. And I was like, okay, great. And so like it was like a really long-term sort of thing where I couldn't get in right away. And so what happened was she's like, hey, there's an extra house key that's like in the cabinet. So she told me exactly where it was. And like I'd gone over there one night to watch The Office with a bunch of people. And like I was like, oh, can I get a glass of water? And I went in, and I like, oh, I'm in the wrong cabinet, right? And I grabbed the extra key so that I could get in later. And so I waited because it was one of those things where Carly was like, I don't want to be a part of this. And so she texted me when Ariel and Amelia were both gone, because I was like, I'm pranking both of them now. They are gonna get it. And so she's like, hey, there was a big party that all of us were gonna go to, and so she's like, hey, Amelia's at work, Ariel's home for the weekend, I'm about to leave, so if you want to come over, now's a good time. And I was like, yes. And so I went over there and I like put the posters up everywhere, and I like completely covered Amelia's hallway into her room with like cups and with water in it and all sorts of stuff like that. And so like I put the key back, locked the door, left, and like went to the party. And I was supposed to pick up Amelia from work, because like my whole plan was like, hey, I'm gonna like be her ride tonight, where I'll pick her up from work and then I'll take her home after the party, because I wanted to be there when she saw the prank stuff. And so but I get a text from her. It says like, hey, I'm just gonna go home because I just found out some hard stuff and I don't want to like go to a party tonight. And I was like, oh, okay. I say party, but it was just like us hanging out playing games, a bunch of us from small group and stuff. And so like I was like, oh man, I hope she's okay. And so I had heard from one of the people that was at the party who was gonna go hang out with her. She's like, yeah, she just found out like she had some family, like something happened in her family, and it's like a really hard day for her. And I was like, are you kidding me? On the day that I pranked her? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, ugh. And so like she gets home and she calls me, and she was not very happy with me, and I felt really bad. And I was like, look, I'll come over right now and I'll clean it up, I'm really sorry. And she's like, no, it's okay, we'll clean it up, it's not a big deal, like, I understand that you had no idea this, blah, blah, blah. So I felt really bad. I actually made her cookies. It took, I mean, they weren't from scratch, but I went and bought cookies and cooked them, and then like I brought them to her like a couple of days later because I felt so bad. I was like, you win, I'm not gonna prank you anymore, you win this prank war. And so I think the next time I tried to prank somebody, I tried to recruit her, because I was like, you should prank with us because you're pretty good at it. But yeah, so it was pretty wild times back in the day. And Amy doesn't really like pranks. She thinks they're mean-spirited. None of the pranks that we ever did were super mean-spirited. Most of them were just among friends who we loved and hung out with, and obviously we had good senses of humor about pranks. I would never prank Amy. She would hate it. And so like that's why I think we talked about it before, where like she would do something funny or whatever and say prank, you know. But anyways, but thanks for listening to my ramblings of my pranks and everything. And I'm pretty sure this is 2 videos long, because I don't want to do like a 45-minute prank video, because I feel like nobody would watch that except for maybe me. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for listening to my crazy stories. I hope you enjoyed these and maybe got some ideas on how to prank your friends if you want to prank. I have a lot of good ideas still, you know, saran wrapping, forking. We used to talk about doing some really crazy pranks back in the day that we just didn't have budgets for, but I definitely think that the puking in cars is a legendary prank that will go down forever as pretty awesome. And maybe if I ever digitize the video, I'll show it, but I can't. I have no idea how to digitize that stuff right now, so especially right now with the quarantine. So anyways, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it, and catch you guys later. And if you have any awesome prank stories, please tell them to me in the comments. I would love to read about prank stories. I love prank stories. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you guys later.